Hi there, everyone. In this video, I want to talk about how some games, not all games, can really benefit from being put into Tabletop Simulator. Now, we all know that Tabletop Simulator is no replacement for the actual thing, for the physical playing of games. But dare I say that some games, because of things with setup, because of things that you need during the game, or upkeep or maintenance and all of that, having the game in Tabletop Simulator, wherein you can actually automate some of these very tedious things, is actually very, very good for the game. So for the longest time, I also was one of those non-believers in Tabletop Simulator that said that it's very clunky, it's very difficult to manipulate things, the fiddliness of it was not ideal. But when I discovered that scripting and actually doing 3D modeling, custom 3D modeling within the game can actually really elevate what you can do with Tabletop Simulator, then I was really converted into being some sort of an advocate for the things you can actually do within Tabletop Simulator. So I think one of the games that I'm really talking about when I say that the game would benefit from being modded or ported to Tabletop Simulator is Barenpark. Now, Barenpark is probably my favorite Polyomino game. And I don't say that lightly because I really do like Polyomino games. Even the new ones, I've played some of them, like Isle of Cats and what have you, but I do prefer Barenpark because I think the simplicity of it is just really, really good. Now, the problem with Barenpark, especially for those of you who are familiar, setup is just, and I do mean the pun, setup is a bear for this kind of game, for this game of this weight. So for those of you unfamiliar, take a look at this. The board that you see right here, the tiles that are placed there are highly dependent on the player count. So much so that I was actually reading the rule book and I said, my God, I don't remember the setup of this game being this demanding. Because I usually play the game with 4 players. So in other words, you just toss everything in and you're good to go, right? So you could have the game in the box set up such that it's good for 4 players. So whenever you play, you're good. But here's the thing. If it's less than 4 players, look at this. These tiles over here change. With 3 players, food streets and rivers, which are these, food streets and rivers, change from 16 to 12. And at 2 players, they become 8. So these change based on the number of players, which is kind of annoying. And then, on top of that, these houses, so these 4 tiles, they change too. So these tiles have points on them. As you can see, 7 points at the top. Next tile will be 6. For 3 players, you have to keep 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 and get rid of 1 and 7. And then, for 2 players, you only need to use the 2, the 4, and the 6, which is kind of insane. And the worst culprit of that are these bear statues right here. So they go from 1 to 16. And for 2 players, you only use the even number tiles. And then for 3 players, you get rid of 1 and 2, and 15 and 16. Which is, wow, that's kind of crazy. And the other things that I want to bring up is that these, so they come in 2 piles. There are 12 of these, I'm going to say tile, or like board pieces. You need to shuffle them. I don't like shuffling boards or tiles of this size within games, right? So you need to shuffle them, and then you need to place them into unique piles, all right? And the other thing, too, is these scoring tiles that need to be randomized. Like you need to pick 3. And randomizing groups of 3 tiles, and they are 3 tiles each, is kind of annoying, too. Suffice it to say that the setup to weight ratio of Barenpark is not ideal. Again, it's still my favorite Polyomino game, but yeah, just setting it up for the variety of different player counts is really annoying. And then so I thought to set out to actually make a mod for Barenpark on TTS. So here is the final mod in its glorious simplicity, right? So at the very least, this is what you're going to see when you open the mod. And right now, since I don't have any other players to play with, I've set it up such that there are 3 players. So player 1, player 2, and player 3 with a hot seat feature of Tabletop Simulator, which will just simulate more than just one player, right? So yeah, no UI or anything. I just really wanted to keep the experience of playing the tabletop game as close to reality as possible. So with this particular mod, I went to the length of actually scripting it such that when you open the box and place the box down, that's the only time the game will be set up. And the game will be set up automatically, detecting how many players there are in the game. Okay, so here we go. So 3 players, remember? And remember the little variations on the tiles that are set up? That will be taken into consideration as well. So here we go. Hope you enjoy. And the rule book's even inside too. There you go. So those tiles are randomly drawn and then placed in 2 distinct sets. The score tiles are also randomized, of course. And then the number of toilets, playgrounds, food streets, and rivers will be depending on the player count. And then the house tiles as well. So thankfully the enclosures don't vary. And then there you go. Aha! And then the box goes back in just to keep everything neat. So yeah, so as mentioned, so the 1 and the 7 tiles are gone from the houses. And then the 1, 2, 15, and 16 are gone from the bear statues. Scoring tiles are, of course, randomized. And then the start player of the game, which I failed to mention earlier, also changed. So, meaning it's randomized, the start player, and these tiles are also randomized as well. So the park entrances that are given to the players are also randomized, of course. And then the first player receives a toilet for a 3-player game. The second player receives a playground. The third player receives a food street. So that stuff is also baked into the scripting and taken into consideration while setting up the game. So that is pretty cool. Now I'd like to set up the game for 4 players just to show you guys that everything is pretty much automated and randomly done. Okay, rulebook. And there are the tiles. The park tiles, I suppose. I forgot. So, yep, score tiles are different this time around. And then there are going to be 10 of the smallest tiles here, and then 16 of the bigger tiles now. There you go, much higher than the ones you saw earlier. And these go from 1 to 7 now. Okay, 1 to 7. Thankfully, the enclosures are not randomized. And then just zooming out so that we can see the distribution of the park entrances. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then there we go. Randomized start player as well. As you can see, the tiles, the entrances have been randomly distributed between the players. And then, yeah, start player will be the one with the smallest tile, the toilet, right here. And then second player with playground, third player playground. Fourth player will have the food street, as drawn from the board itself, not from excess supply or what have you. So yeah, super cool. But that, of course, is not just the feature of Barenpark within Tabletop Simulator. The other thing that Barenpark really benefits from within Tabletop Simulator is the fitting of the polyominoes with each other. So in my game, this particular polyomino, when you place it, the gap is actually very tight. So when you try to put a tile in this gap, it's actually pretty difficult. But with, of course, Tabletop Simulator, that is not going to be a problem. Now, polyominoes in Tabletop Simulator is their own challenge, of course. But if you get them right, like this, they work wonderfully. And it's just fantastic. So the challenge in polyominoes for Tabletop Simulator is that you need to model these one by one. right? And then the benefit of having all of these snap to grid is what allows you to place the pieces very readily and very easily. And that even goes through, the tiles. That's an illegal move, but just to show you that they do work on top of the park entrances and the park areas. So that's good. That's something that I found very, very cool in terms of making Barenpark for Tabletop Simulator. So let's give it a whirl in terms of just placing things. So let's do this. Because no, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. Okay, so let's get a mixer, which is this. Get that. And then for my next turn, this is simulate that everybody's done. I want to get a wheelbarrow and 2 park areas. So let's do this. And then 2 wheelbarrows. What would be nice? I think a food street would be good. And then a river, maybe. Yep, a river would be good. Okay, next. Let's do this and get a cement mixer. What would be nice? Just to keep things neat, I think I'll get a panda enclosure. And then do this. And then, what was it? Oh, a wheelbarrow. I guess I'll get a toilet just to finish this thing off. Get an excavator right here. We'll get a big piece. What would the big piece be? I want this one. Anyway, and then let's just get this so that we can get a bear statue. All right. So this particular area is done, so I can get my bear statue. Place some of that there. And then continue on just as we did. And look at this. Isn't this beautifully placed? And very, very easy to do as well on Tabletop Simulator. And then, of course, you could just move stuff around. If you accidentally grab the player areas, you can lock them in place and what have you. And so you keep going like this up until the end of the game. And the other thing that's very, very clunky within Barenpark is scoring. Scoring is very simple, don't get me wrong, but it's clunky in that it's very difficult to count these numbers, right? So once you have 4 play areas done, and somebody triggers the end game, which is completing all of their covering all of their play areas with tiles, then the round ends and scoring can begin. And it is simple, right? You just add everything, but yeah, it's very difficult to keep track of what tiles you've already scored versus tiles you have not scored. So in the real world game, I actually take out pieces instead of leaving them there, which isn't ideal, but that's the easiest way to keep track of what tiles you've scored, what tiles you have not. But if you want to be able to keep track of where the tiles are placed on the board, then that's going to be difficult as well. So yeah, in this final build of the mod, that's the other thing that the Barenpark Tabletop Simulator mod improves over the analog version. So let's just say you have some scoring tiles as well, right? Just to make it a little bit more realistic. We'll turn on the UI for this part because we'll need it. You'll see that each tile has a value on them. So 8 score tile, 9 score tile. You'll also see that this one, the koala enclosure, has a value of 7. So all you need to do when doing final scoring in the Tabletop Simulator mod of Barenpark is to click and drag over all the tiles you have on your park and boop, hover over one, and there you go. That's your final score. So 8, which is this, plus 46, which is basically the sum of all the other tiles, is 54. And that is your final score, ladies and gentlemen. And that is essentially all there is to know. And I guess, hopefully, about the Barenpark mod of Tabletop Simulator. Or I should say, that is all there is to see and like about a game that very much fits Tabletop Simulator and takes advantage of the strengths of Tabletop Simulator, as opposed to always compromising, right? Like, I can do this in the physical analog version, I can't do this in Tabletop Simulator. So I think Barenpark is a very, very good illustration that games can be very much well implemented within Tabletop Simulator, and in a lot of cases, I suppose, more than what Tabletop Simulator is given credit for. In a lot of cases, making the Tabletop Simulator mod can actually be, in a lot of ways, better than the physical analog version. Or at the very least, that's what I'm trying to advocate. So yeah, hope you guys really enjoy this. And just as a parting, just as some parting words, I suppose, I'll show you guys the setup for 2 players. And if you guys really enjoy the zen feeling of seeing those pieces fly around on the board automatically by themselves, as I do enjoy them, and I hope you enjoy it. But for the rest of you, thank you so much. If you ever have any questions or any challenges for me within Tabletop Simulator, because I am looking for games that could really benefit from a Tabletop Simulator implementation, then just please let me know, and I'll be glad to help you out. So thank you, everybody, and take care. Oh yes, and I did forget to mention, for those of you wondering, this mod is actually not available on Tabletop Simulator Workshop. So I really just wanted to do this as an exercise to create a game that I think would be better in Tabletop Simulator as opposed to in real life, and I think I was able to achieve that. So all the assets that you see here were scanned from my personal copy of the game, and I think I'll be having a lot of fun playing this game with friends during this time of quarantine. Again, thanks so much, guys. Hope you enjoyed it.